Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Hayden Schueler from Vereya Gardening. Hayden's got a great story about how he started, and it was a musical background that he initially followed after school. And then, in a fortunate turn of events, he applied for a job that he saw advertised at the Music Academy and got a maintenance project that he ended up working on for 5 years and learned a hell of a lot on. So it's pretty cool hearing that story. And he also talks about how he went overseas just recently for 7 weeks, having a look at all different gardens, and spoke about the challenges and preparation that he did to have his business being able to run while he was away for 7 weeks. And he's also got great business practices about trying to be as local as possible in not only the jobs that he does, but also the people that he employs as well. So love having this chat with Hayden. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Hayden Schueler. Hayden, thank you for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
Well, thanks, Joel. Thanks for having me. I sort of just fell into it, I guess. It was one of those things where I never thought I would end up where I am right now. So for most of my life growing up, I was really big into music, and I studied that at uni as well. I did a Bachelor of Music in composition. And after that, I really got into film music. I was trying to, write for films and short films, documentaries, this sort of thing. And, it's pretty hard to get into, very competitive, and it's very computer based these days rather than actually playing instruments. A lot of it's just done on the computer. So I didn't really get into it enough, and my gardening business just picked up quicker. So I was gardening on the side during this whole time as well. I've been gardening since I was 15, just for people around the neighborhood. I'm up in the Dandenong Ranges, in Ferny Creek, and everyone has quite big gardens around here and a lot of trees. Everyone just needs some help from time to time with things up here. So it was, for someone young and keen to get out there and do that sort of thing, there was just, a lot of work available.
And that was just more because you wanted to earn money rather than because
Yeah.
you wanted to do that work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I never had like a proper job as such. I was always just earned my money from just helping people around the hill. But then I did end up working in a nursery for a little while. That was just like a wholesale nursery in Monbulk, where we just potted like 10,000 poinsettias, and then next season we pot 10,000 cyclamen. And so I did that for a while. I worked for a guy that did commercial mowing for a little while, and that was really interesting because I was a red pea plater. I was like 18 years old, and he just straight away just gets me in the ute by myself, towing like a 1 ton ride-on mower all around Melbourne, and just completely just threw me in the deep end, which I'm sort of glad about. Like it was good, but I was just so nervous all the time, like driving that around. I remember being on the other side of the Burnley Tunnel and going to this job in Williamstown from up here, and I had two semi-trailers right next to me, and I'm just in the middle, just like just shaking, it was, yeah, it was pretty horrifying at times. But I guess like my love of gardening stemmed from when I was a kid as well. My mum was really into her garden, and all of her family, like my grandma, my aunties, they're all into gardening. It's sort of just something that we all grew up with up here.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember when I was probably about 10, I asked mum if I could prune the hydrangeas, and it was in winter. And she's like, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, go on, go and prune them." And what I thought were hydrangeas were azaleas. And I just pruned back all her azaleas, which were about to flower, all coming into flower. And she came out and she was just horrified.
So, and that's the last time you spoke to her?
Yeah, that's right. No,
So,
I haven't moved that far. We live like the property next door now.
all right. How's the azalea going to grow back?
Oh, they always do.
Yep.
They always do.
But the hydrangeas will be woody now.
Yeah, they're still due. Yeah, but yeah. So funnily enough, I went to the VCA to study music in the
Oh,
city. Yeah, and when I was there, there was a sign up for someone in Brighton who wanted a gardener, and I thought that's a pretty weird place to request a gardener in an arts college. They could have gone to Burnley or somewhere else, but here they are. And I thought, surely that's for me. Like, there's no one else here in this whole place that would be interested in gardening. Like, surely that's for me. So I called them, and they wanted referees and all this sort of thing, which I thought was a bit extreme for someone's house. So, I rock up there, and it turns out it's this massive garden in Brighton. It's like on the beach. It's like an acre of gardens. It ended up being one of Paul Bangay's first one of his first big gardens that he did.
all right.
I think it was I don't know, in the 70s or 80s or something like that. It's in his first book. And anyway, so she wanted me to help with the garden there. I think the other gardener must have left or something. And on my first day, I was just going around, just doing what I thought sort of needed doing and following her advice a bit. And there was these box hedges, and there were dietes, which are all behind the box hedges, and they're all coming over the box hedges so far. And I thought, oh, I should probably clear those a little bit. So I've got the hedge shears, just cut back the dietes a little bit. This is probably when I was about 20, 21 years old, something like that. And she comes out, and she was just absolutely horrified at what I'd done, because I'd cut back the dietes, and she didn't want them cut back. She liked the way they hung over the box hedges. And she was just walking around just like, she's like, oh, these are going to take ages to grow back. And I was they're just like, oh, sorry, just thought I'd take a bit of initiative, and just, they were coming over. And she's like, no, don't take initiative with me. I am the gardener.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, crap, I'm gonna be fired now, like first day, But no, she got me back the next week, and from then on, I just did everything that she said.
Yep.
I didn't take any initiative on anything. I just did exactly what she said, and I ended up being the weekly gardener there for about 5 years,
Ah.
and she taught me a lot. She taught me a lot about pruning, fertilizing, hedging, just all that good stuff that you need as a gardener. She taught me everything, really.
Did you get passive aggressive at all at any stage? And then when there's something that really obvious needed to get done, and you didn't do it and said, "Oh, you didn't tell me to do it," so tell me to take initiative.
No, I can't remember any case like that, but I'm sure she was pretty happy that I just did what she said.
Did you
Yeah.
find out why she put the note up at the music college or the College of the Arts?
Yeah. So she wanted an artist. She wanted someone
Right.
with an arts kind of mindset to help with the garden. She didn't want someone who had trained in gardening. She just wanted someone who, I don't know, maybe thought a bit differently, or, and she was pretty keen to train, so she was training me how she wanted me to look after the garden.
Hey, cool. What a great
Mm.
result, isn't it? Getting that
Yeah,
job.
it was very good. It was very good. And I learned hedging and topiary there because I was fascinated by it. Obviously, I was from early on as well. And I'd never seen, hedges and topiary like in this garden before. So, yeah. And I was just real keen. Like, there was massive ornamental pear hedges, and I was just super keen to prune them. Like, a lot of people would look at them and probably be a bit daunted about giving them a go, but I was just always really keen to do it. And early on, all we used was hand shears. So we just used to do them all with hand shears, and took ages, took like 3 days, but got a really nice result. There's something just so nice about pruning with hand shears. You just get such a crisp finish, especially with larger leafed foliage. Hedge trimmers can just rip them a little bit. So when you're using hand shears, you just get a nice clean finish, and We still do those hedges today, 12 years later. I don't
Yeah,
do
right.
the weekly gardening stint there anymore, but I still come in and do those pear tree hedges. But we use machines now.
Yeah. So how did you finish up with that one? Like, why was it only 5 years?
Because it was just too far. It's like an hour or
All right.
more from my
Yeah, yeah.
house. And by that time, I was sort of building a business up here around the hill. And yeah, just the weekly stint out there by myself wasn't really that feasible anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
So did you end up doing any study at all, or you just learn on the job?
Just learn on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, learn on the job the whole way. I thought about it once. I considered a graduate certificate at Burnley, and I looked into it pretty seriously. And then one night I had this nightmare where I just had essays and deadlines and all this stuff to complete. And I just woke up and I was just like, nah, I just can't do that again. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So I never did. Plus, I had so much work up here, and I just I don't know, just had so much to do. I didn't feel like I don't know, just didn't feel like I needed it, I guess.
Yeah. Just begin this
Um,
piece of paper that won't really.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And I've learnt a lot along the way just by being passionate about gardening. And I think if you're passionate about something, you just learn things. You listen, you pick things up, you research, and that's sort of just what I've done. Yeah, and I've worked for some knowledgeable people. Like even today, I worked for one of my oldest customers, oldest as in original customers.
Yep.
Um, and she's extremely knowledgeable. So, we just chat about gardens, and yeah, you just learn from people who have had their gardens for so many years, and they know what works and what doesn't work. They know how to look after their garden, and sometimes you're there just to help them. Yeah, sometimes we do gardens that the people don't do anything. They have these 2 acre gardens that they don't want to do anything themselves,
Yep.
which is amazing. And we just we just do the whole thing. But yeah, some people really love their gardens, and we're there to help them.
Yeah, I reckon it's good that you're humble enough to have those conversations with your clients where you can learn. So you're not just trying to pretend to them that you know everything.
Yeah.
You're sort of being open to learning from them because, yeah, with a different mindset, they wouldn't share that information with you, so you wouldn't learn. But if you're open
Mm.
to it, then yeah, it increases your knowledge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it's hard, not to, because they're passionate about it, and sometimes they like to work there with you. They sort of come out, and like he's got her walking stick, and pointing at this and pointing at that, and take that branch off and take that branch off, which is fine.
And when you're working out pricing, like, do you do like either hourly? Like, I assume it's probably different for different projects, but if you've got a fixed price for a regular job, do you think about how chatty they are and include that in your initial price?
Yeah, so we've got a whole mixed bag of different pricings, I guess, just the way things have evolved over the years. So most of our work is done on an hourly rate, but then some jobs are quoted. So there might be some lawns or hedges which could be quoted. We also do a large body corporate, and that's 130 houses. And we do that it's like an annual price, which we tendered for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all.
Is that like a 12-month contract as well?
It's 18 months currently. Used to be 3 years. I've done that for about 10 years. I think it's our 10th
Oh,
year. Yeah. I bit of a sidestep, but I joined a partnership with another gardener to take that on.
yeah.
It was such a big project. It's like
Yeah.
2 days a week, two, 3, 4 people, depending on how it is.
All right.
Um, and yeah, so joined a partnership to do that. But just this year he's retired. And so we've taken that on with Vereya. Yeah. And I learned a lot from him as well, actually. I forgot to mention him. His name's Rodney. He's like 73 years old now. And I learned heaps from him as well, because we've gardened together for, nearly 10 years. So
How
he
did you
was
come across him?
just working in a garden on the hill. So I was working in this garden and he was working in this garden. This lady had like 4 gardeners and they're all just independent. So I
Oh, the
just,
one property.
yeah, yeah, it was like a 3 acre garden. Yeah, she was a funny lady, and when her husband, went overseas or whatever, she'd just try and employ as many gardeners as possible. And she's like, "Don't tell Richard, don't tell Richard." So yeah, met Rodney through that, and then we started gardening together, and we got along really well. And even today, we're just like mates, and yeah, we joined this partnership, and yeah,
That's
we've just
awesome. Yeah, it's an underrated thing. People doing partnerships like that, and that's a perfect example of how to do it as well. Like, you don't need to be partners, for every single project going forward. You
yeah,
can just do it on a couple of projects every now and then. Like, if there's two landscapers, you might join up to do a big project together. Like, and every
yeah,
now and then you can do these bigger ones, but other than that, you're doing your own. So that's a
yeah.
great idea. You don't hear of it that often.
No, that's right. And it is a really good mix actually, because like you say, you sort of have that assistance for those bigger jobs or bigger projects, especially when you're dealing with body corporate. Like there's so many people involved and there's a committee and then there's the body corporate manager. Things can get a bit tangled up. So just to have some extra support there was really good.
So it's just 2 or 3 days for two people every week of the year.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. So we do all the gardens there. We do everything up to people's front doors and down their footpaths, but then there's also all the common areas, alcoves. We do all the lawns as well. So we got 2 ride-on mowers. One of them actually just lives down there. We just leave it down there now, better than in my house.
Yeah.
And we got a trailer down there too, actually, for all the green waste. So we've just bought those and just left them down there in a compound. But yeah, it's been a really good project to have as a just an ongoing all year round.
Yeah, just the
Yeah,
consistency and the cash flow. Like,
very,
what sort of,
yeah,
how often they pay?
monthly.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
like as long as you know what's coming in, and yeah, that's
yeah,
that's awesome.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, and they've been pretty good. They normally pay within a week to 10 days. So
Yep.
yeah, it's been very good.
Very
Mm.
nice. Is it very like close to where the people who work there are?
Oh, yeah, we're up pretty much all on the hill. So I think the furthest, yeah, so that's down in Rowville. So it's about 15-20 minutes away from my house.
Yep.
And yeah, all of our staff, all of our gardeners are either on the hill or just off the hill. So one of them is actually in Rowville, and he's the furthest away. Yeah,
All
everyone
right.
else is on the hill. Yeah,
Nice. So
yeah,
how did you start building up all your work?
yeah. So it was just one of those things that just sort of happened, I guess. I never intended to make a gardening business. Gardening was just always something that I just did, and I didn't really know where it, would go or could go. But it was just one of those things where when you get enough work, I just needed to get someone else on to help me because I had too much work. And it it literally just snowballed from that. Once you get someone else to help you, you obviously have to look after your customers and keep your customers so you can then keep building and then, get another person on and then get another person on. And with everybody just being local as well, like it sort of worked that you didn't have to commit to just hiring full timers every time you needed someone else on. Like, people were happy just to do 2-3 days a week, or sometimes they did other things. The first guy I ever got on, he still works with me one day every 3 weeks. And that's great. We just, we catch up and it's really good. But he does his own gardening as well. And so it was good for him just to do some with us and have his thing on the side as well. And some of the other boys did the same thing. Whereas now the staff that we have, they're pretty consistent. Well, they needs to be consistent now with
Yeah.
the amount that we've got on. Yeah.
How many staff do you have now?
So we've got 6. So there's 2 that pretty much do full-time hours, 3 that do 4 days a week, and 1 that is happy to be pretty casual,
Yep.
and just fills in the gaps, and he does some other work elsewhere as well. And that works really well. Two of them are my cousins.
All right, it's handy.
So yeah. So it's a sort of slowly evolving to a bit of a family thing, I think.
All right. And where did the name come from?
Just all local. Given that the Hills Gardens are, pretty different and diverse up here, and I really like to employ local people who are keen to garden, that know the area, know the plants, know the weeds, know how to treat things up here. And plus, I think if people can work close to their home, it's great. I have advertised before, quite a few times, and I'm always on the lookout for the most, as close as possible, really. Yeah, I've had a couple of people like in the city, or I've actually had some local people who do gardening for other companies like in the city, who want to come and actually work closer to home rather than driving in so much.
Yep.
So it's nice to be able to accommodate those people if I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, like I listen to a lot of North American podcasts, and they do like landscaping as well as lawn maintenance, and they're always banging on about the root density and having everything as close as you can, so you're not spending too much time traveling. So it
Yeah.
certainly helps if you can do that, and by having local people as well, it makes it easier for them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and we're very fortunate to have so much local work. Like we've got jobs, on my street, on the next street, on the next street. Like everything is just super, super close. And the other thing is, with root density, it's very important if you're doing, lots of lawns, for example.
Yeah,
People that just go do lawn, 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 lawn. We don't really do that. I mean, we do lawn mowing, but we're not a lawn mowing service.
yeah,
And there's hardly any jobs that we only mow the lawn for.
yeah.
So
And when you're going to jobs, you're probably there for like a day or longer periods of time.
yeah, that's right. So if we can be there for a day, that's great. Half a day, probably 2 hours would be the minimum. Anything less than that doesn't feel, that worth it. And like you say, you want to sort of eliminate as much travel on the day as possible. So if you can get like a 2 hour job, then a 2 hour job, then you have lunch, and then like a 3 hour job in the afternoon or something, that's pretty good.
Yep.
Otherwise, two half days or a full day, it's yeah, I'm always trying to advocate for more time from the customers. I'm happy for more time, but come less frequently than to come more frequently with
Yeah.
smaller time frames.
Yep. Perfect. Yep. Do you find yourself saying no to anyone if they say, "Can you come and do some work for us?" and they say, "Oh, it's a bit too far away"?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, right.
They're probably surprised because I really try and keep it pretty tight knit, and they might only be like 15 minutes away, and I'm just
It's
like,
too
no,
far.
sorry, it's too far. We don't come down that way.
Yeah.
I mean, if they want us for like a whole day or something, like that's fine. But if they're just wanting to, do, I don't know, a lawn or a small job or something like that, it's just not our area. Yeah, I
Yep.
always joke with everyone we've got a 2 kilometer radius.
Yeah.
It's not quite that, but
Not
yeah,
far off.
not far off. Yeah.
And are you also like flat out? Like you can't take it on any jobs anyway, even if they were close?
Yeah, we're still taking on new jobs. We've had quite there's been a few sort of good jobs that we've had that have sort of disappeared this year due to people leaving, selling up. Had a couple of customers pass away, which was sad. So yeah, just a few little things have happened. So winter always slows down a bit, and it's sometimes tricky to try and keep enough work for everybody during winter. We're fortunate to, really be a gardening service where we're looking after people's gardens all year round rather than just a lawn mowing service. There's always something to do in winter. I actually really enjoy gardening in winter because you can get a bit more creative in the garden and start, moving things around, transplanting, dividing, actually sort of looking at how the structure of the garden, sort of how it's working, and if it's not working, what can we do? Whereas spring's just, full on maintenance. You're just mowing, trimming. You don't really get any time or the opportunity for that sort of stuff. some people you have to convince that, yeah, we are coming to actually do something, because some people just look out the window and then just say, nothing's growing, there's nothing you can do. And it's like, well, there are still things for us to do, so it's sometimes a bit tricky just to let people know. Yeah,
No,
so
that's
we,
it.
we are still taking on some
Yeah.
customers. I looked at a job this afternoon. Yeah, it'll fill up quickly though.
Do you find yourself doing any new projects, like any new builds where you can talk to the designer about what their vision is for the design?
Yeah, that's interesting. We actually don't do that much with landscapers or designers or anything like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be a big market for it up here. All the gardens are quite established. They're
Mm.
quite old, like Edna Wallen gardens and this sort of thing.
You don't
Um,
return your emails.
yeah, yeah. And we're doing one currently where a designer isn't involved, and that's only just starting. And I'm looking forward to how that collaboration's going to work, because they're based in the city, but they're doing sort of design for the garden up here. So they're really keen to work with me on it. So that's going to be really good. But yeah, we don't do a huge amount of like landscaping and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And what sort of tools are you using? I've seen a bit of the green machine, the Makita.
Yeah, that's right. So got so many tools. Um, so yeah, we've got 4 work cars at the moment, and they're all kitted out with lots of stuff. So lots of ladders. I use tripod ladders from Hasegawa. There's 2 that I use: there's Hasegawa and Henchman. One's a Japanese company, one's an English company. They're both made in China. Um, but they're fantastic ladders. They're the best that I've ever used, and I would never use another ladder outside. So I've got about 10 of those. The advantage is that you can adjust all the feet, and we're always working on hills, slopes, uneven ground. So to be able to adjust all 3 feet is just amazing.
Yeah, I was just hearing Andy Watkins from Leaf by Leaf. He was talking about um, yeah, how good they are because you can sort of get into the tree. Like when you're up
Yeah,
a ladder, you're within the tree rather than standing on the outside.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the back 2 legs, are they like a normal ladder, and then it's a tripod is like is it how they work?
yeah. So it's got 2 legs which are quite wide. The base is very wide, which gives it the stability, and then it's got just a single center pole
Yep.
in the middle, which is thick and very stable.
Mm.
Yeah, and with the ones that I've got, all 3 legs adjust,
All right.
so you can change the heights of all 3 legs, so you can just make sure it's even no matter sort of what surface you're on. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds interesting to picture because I assume between the 2 back legs, that's where the ladder rungs are attached.
Yeah, so it kind of just runs up sort of alongside them.
All right.
Yeah. And a little pin you pull out and you just sort of drop
Yeah.
them down, and yeah, yeah, they're really good, really
Well,
good.
they set you back those good ones.
Well, yeah, they're not cheap because you have to get them couriered down from Sydney because no one distributes them down here. I thought about once just, getting involved in that, but I've got nowhere to store a whole container of ladders. But yeah, they can be like 600, 800. I think the 14-foot I got was like, 1,200 or 1,400 or something.
Oh
Like, it
wow.
was not cheap. And then you have to get them couriered down, which can be, I can't remember now, might be $100 a ladder or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But good quality, so you're only paying that once. I think.
that's right. Yep, 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 yep. And they're definitely worth it. They're worth every single dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Andrew was saying the same thing. He was saying once you go tripod, you'll never go back.
yeah, yep, that's right. Yep. So yeah, we use a lot of those. We use a lot of electric equipment now. So back in 2017, I converted to Ego. After a lot of research, I tried all the brands, but I just loved the way Ego, it was just, I found it very versatile. You could, put the batteries in any machine, and you also had a backpack that you could put the battery in to take all the weight off. And I found the power was the most similar to petrol. So we use that as a staple. So with blowers, whippersnippers, some of the hedge trimmers, edges, and all that. So yeah, all the cars are kitted out with that. And then I've also used a little bit of Husqvarna, but also Makita, which is what you were saying before, mostly for the finer work and the topiary work. Got the quicker, very quick blade speed, which is great for getting really neat results, but doesn't have the power of ego. So if you're wanting to cut through something a bit thicker, I'd always be going to the ego because it's quite powerful. Whereas if I'm doing box hedges or something, I'm generally always using Makita.
So with having the four vehicles with those that stuff in there, what's the charging sort of situation like? Do you charge them overnight every night, or how often do you need to do that?
Yes, that's part of my nightly routine. I go and make sure that all the batteries are charged. The boys are good. They put the batteries on charge when they get back from work. So hopefully most of them are sort of already done. We do charge at people's houses as well if we need to. We carry around chargers, and yeah, if we have to charge, we'll do that. Yeah.
How often do you need to charge, like for when you're using the whippersnipper or something? I assume it's different for each bit of equipment, but are you changing the batteries during the day very much?
Yeah, if we're doing like a large amount of whippersnipping or a large amount of hedging, yeah, we will have to charge them. Like for example, on Wednesday there was three of us on a job for the whole day doing hedges. So we just got to keep the batteries rotating. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they charge very quickly.
Like how quick?
The small batteries will probably charge in about 20 minutes,
All right.
and you get probably I don't know, easily over an hour on them. So you're never behind.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are they expensive, the batteries?
They can be, yeah. They can be anywhere from I think 200 up to about 600, depending on the
Yeah.
size. But with Ego particularly, they've always got deals on, or you buy the batteries in with kits, or you wait for the Total Tools 20% cash back
Yep.
things. Like you just sort of be a bit smart about how you go about purchasing all this stuff, and it sort of works out in the end. They often have redemptions where you buy a certain amount and you get free batteries. I know
Mm.
they've got them now. You get sort of free batteries with the commercial equipment. So you just take advantage of those things.
Yep. What about getting them serviced? Do you do that with battery stuff as well? Or
Nah, not really. Obviously, the hedge trimmers need to be cleaned and sharpened occasionally, that sort of thing. But there's hardly any servicing with the machines. They're really, really they're so good. I know some people have had problems with the batteries and some of the equipment, dying, and that has happened with me as well. I think it just happens when you use them so much, and they are putting out a lot of power. I reckon they're putting out a lot of power, and sometimes they can't handle it themselves, so they have a bit of a hissy fit. But their warranty is pretty good, and the repairer is just in Rowville, around the
right.
corner from the estate that we do. So it's fine. Yeah, we make it work.
Yeah. Sounds like you go into actual Melbourne as much as I do, which is never.
Never.
That's
Avoid
handy.
traffic.
Yeah, same. Yeah, very handy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When I sent you a message to ask you to come on the podcast, you sent me a photo where you were just working away on the banks of Lake Como, I think it was.
Yeah.
So how was that? Yeah, a trip overseas recently.
Oh, yeah, it was so good. It was fantastic. Yeah. What's happened? I got engaged overseas.
Congratulations.
Thanks. In a great garden. So one of the main ones I wanted to see was called Levens Hall, and that's in England. Very old topiary garden with topiaries, up to 300 years old. And yeah, I just really wanted to see that. That was just amazing. I've seen it in books, and I've seen it on Instagram, but never been to see it. So that was really good. Marquissac in France was another one that I really wanted to see. That was one that they've got 150,000 Buxus plants, and they're all all hedged and shaped, and It's just insane the amount of them, and they're all done by hand. They've got 6 full-time gardeners, and even when I was there, they're all just, they're just going for it.
Yes.
And they all use Barco shears, which is really interesting. They use Barco shears. And another garden I went to called Erignac, they use Barco shears as well, and they do everything by hand. So it was interesting to see how they go about doing all that. They use a lot of string lines and, to get all their hedges nice and straight, which is obviously important if you're going to do it all by hand as well. And yeah, they get great results. But the trickiest thing about going overseas, of course, was keeping the business running
Mm.
from overseas. This is leading up to going overseas was probably one of the busiest times I've ever had, trying to work out how it was going to happen.
But you were gone for 7 weeks, is that right?
I've gone for 7 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fair old stretch.
So yeah, it's a long time, and in a way, it was a tricky time to go away because it was winter. And as I was saying before, it's sometimes hard to make sure you've got enough work and regular work for everybody to keep them going.
Mm.
So I trained up my cousin Ethan, who's worked with us for a couple of years and sort of knows how everything flows. Sort of trained him how to use ServiceMate, how I use Google Calendar to schedule and plan all my color coding and just, all this kind of thing. And he also house sat, which was handy because he could look after the cars and look after the tools and make sure everything was ready for the next day.
Is everything, all those workers still kept at your place, are they? Is everything...
Yeah. One of them's kept at Ethan's place, my cousin. But then, of course, when he house sat here, the car came as well. But yeah, they're all just here. Yeah. Mm.
So how many gardens did you go to overseas?
Oh, maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus a few, villas and other things that.
And did you get to talk to anyone maintaining it?
Yeah, Levens Hall. I spoke to the gardeners there, and that was really good. They all do. They were just doing planting when I was there, but they all do the hedging and the trimming as well. It was interesting. They've got a much later season, I guess, than us. By the time I got there, it was summer, and if you think about how summer would look here, the actual growth that they had across their Buxus and yew and topiary, like it wasn't very much. It hadn't really grown much, and they only trim it once a year, which is probably because that's all they really have to. Whereas here, if that was, our December, for example, all the stuff would just be so overgrown and you'd have to trim it.
Yeah.
It just really showed how things grow differently.
What species of Buxus they have?
It was mainly just English Buxus sempervirens.
Yep.
Yeah, mainly. But there's little variants which I was sort of unsure about, like ones that were slightly different color. Like here, you just sort of you have your English box, Dutch box, Japanese, Korean. But over there, they do have some funny other little ones which all sort of blend in. I went to one garden and they had 90 different species of Buxus.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know there were 90 different species of Buxus.
Oh, you said maybe 9?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 90 different species. And in the back, they were actually growing and propagating quite a lot of these different varieties. And I went round and I took photos of everything, tried to take photos of the plant and the labels, because there were some really interesting ones. There were some that were just so tiny. They just had such tiny little intricate leaves, like a little dwarf one. And they had some really large ones that had these massive leaves, almost like olive trees, like quite long, elongated. Yeah, some really, really interesting stuff. And that was one of the main things I wanted to see. I wanted to see, lots of different things over there. But they have such a problem with the caterpillar.
All right.
Caterpillar and blight as
Yep.
well.
Yeah, that's why I was asking what species it was, because I know that's a bigger issue overseas than what it is here.
Yeah, it's a massive, massive issue. I thought blight was the worst, but the caterpillar seems to be the worst one, especially through France. And they go to so much effort to try and organically control these caterpillars. Like they've got teams of people going like during the night because that's when it's most effective to try and spray all their buxus with this organic concoction. Yeah, we're lucky we don't have it. We're
Yeah.
really, really lucky we don't have it. But you never know, it could come over.
Yeah, it's expensive to go overseas because we're so far away from everywhere, but they do have its benefits as well.
Mm, yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
So did you learn anything that you're going to implement into what you do every day?
I was just very inspired by the way everything was laid out, and I was inspired by a lot of the different gardens. In Lake Como, they had a lot of red geraniums, and I always just kind of looked at red geraniums as a bit of a tacky plant. Um, but they
Classic
had
banana
them,
plant.
yeah, that's right. But they had them everywhere in pots, and they're actually very romantic. They've got them on balustrading, overhanging the lake. And I was just thinking there's a couple of jobs that I'd actually like to put them in. I
Yeah.
think they'd go really nicely. So there's one that I never thought I'd put in.
Yeah. You're getting older now.
Yeah, maybe.
Banana.
Yeah.
So what do you have plans with the business on like where you're like that you tick off, like goals that you head to work towards?
I'm pretty bad with all this stuff, Joel,
Me too.
and I don't really.
Yeah, luckily no one asked me that question because I got no idea what I'm doing in the next 6 months, let alone five
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. I don't have like a business coach or anything. I I had I do have a bookkeeper which helps me keep everything on track, but I don't have anyone that we sort of make plans with and goals to hit and this kind of thing. I'm just happy to get by season to season, and the good thing is the business is naturally growing. I don't really have to try and push that side of it very much. As long as we just keep looking after the customers and we're not losing jobs, the business will keep growing.
Yeah, it's funny
Um,
how much people put a focus on marketing and getting more leads and all this other stuff about how you need to do all these different things. But one of the things, if you just do a good job, that's going to solve 90% of your marketing problems.
yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Having existing, loyal, regular customers is just the best thing. And I often think that in relation to other trades, such as, say plumbers or electricians, they just have to look for jobs all the time.
yeah,
You always need sort of new jobs, and then you have to go out and quote them, and it's a bit of a pain. We're sort of in a great position where we've got so much regular work coming in that we don't really have to, yeah, like you say, look for it or market.
yeah.
Mm.
And do you have good relationships with other people in the industry as well? Because there's a couple of other maintenance folks who I know of who um, are a fan of your work. So do you catch up with any of them?
Yeah, so yeah, that's all thanks to Instagram, really.
Yeah,
So when I joined Instagram, I just wanted to follow gardeners and gardens and topiaries from all around the world. And I've pretty much just kept to that because I just wanted my Instagram feed to be just full of as much gardening content as possible. But yeah, prior to Instagram, it was sort of, I guess, harder to network with other gardeners. You're sort of all just buzzing around doing your own thing. But Instagram's been great. So yeah, I connect well with Cam from Abcam Horticulture and yeah, Andy from Leaf by Leaf. So we're all sort of doing similar things, but we're all in different parts of Melbourne,
yeah.
I guess, which is really interesting. Maybe we should just all combine and just form a massive company.
They're too far away.
Yeah,
Not,
that's
you're not within 2 Ks, so
true.
yeah, too far.
Yeah.
Last question for you, Hayden, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Well, I think I'll keep it local to me. So Jeremy Francis from Cloud Hill. I don't know if you know Cloud Hill Gardens.
Yeah, I do want to get there one day.
Yeah, yeah. So he's the creator of Cloud Hill,
Oh,
and
cool.
he still, plays such an active role up there. I reckon he'd be great to talk to because he's designed that whole garden, and he also has to run the garden as a business as well, which I think would be very interesting to delve into. There's Chojo featured trees there as well, Jeff. You know, if you want to delve into the world of bonsai, he's pretty amazing. There's also a guy in Gembrook. His name's Jeff as well, actually, but he's got a fantastic topiary garden, and he sells his topiary. But I met him years ago, a couple of times, and he's really fascinating to talk to about topiary and pruning, and he's very philosophical about everything that he does. Years ago, he taught me when you prune something, every stem should be looking at you. So if you have branches that are crossing or coming up in front of the plant, you take those out because all the stems should be looking at you. And I've definitely taken that one on.
Yeah, it makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, been looking forward to this chat. So thank you so much for coming on. I absolutely love talking about it and seeing the work that you do. So thank you very much for powering through and coming on.
No problems. Thanks very much, Joel.